Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Luke. We're in chapter 7, and we're going to read verses 11 through 17 today. This is the first resurrection account. This is the raising of the widow's son. And this event is only recorded in Luke's Gospel, as Lazarus' raising is only recorded in John's Gospel. The raising of Jairus' daughter is in all three synoptic gospels. Let me just say something about the resurrection accounts in the Bible. There are 7. Now, I'm not counting the people that roamed around on the day Jesus was crucified, or the image of the valley of dry bones in the book of Ezekiel. I'm talking about an actual resurrection account where someone, through the power of God, raised someone who had just died from the dead. And there are 7 of them. 7 is a significant number. 2 in the Old Testament, 2 in the New, other than Jesus, and 3 by Jesus. 2 before, 2 after, and then 3 by Jesus. 3 is also a significant number. Elijah and Elisha both raise sons and give them back to their mother. And then Peter raises Tabitha, and Paul raises Eutychus. And in between, we have these 3 accounts. So, Jesus is going to return his son back to his mother, just like Elijah has already done, and Elisha has already done. And this is going to be the first, in chronological order, I believe, of the resurrection events. We've been pondering in the text upon the authority of Jesus. The people heard his words. They know he has authority. The centurion has expressed, I know you have authority to heal. You just say the word and my servant will be healed. You don't have to come here. And now we're going to see just how great that authority is, because Jesus has authority over life and death. Verses 11 through 17, Luke chapter 7. It came about soon afterwards that he went to a city called Nain. This is about 12 miles south of Capernaum. And his disciples were going along with him, accompanied by a large multitude. And as he approached the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a sizable crowd from the city was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he felt compassion for her, and said to her, Do not weep. And he came and he touched the coffin, and the bearers came to a halt. And he said to the young man, he said, Young man, I say to you, arise. And the dead man sat up and began to speak. And Jesus gave him back to his mother. And fear gripped them all. And they began glorifying God, saying, A great prophet has risen among us, and God has visited his people. And this report concerning him went out all over Judea and in the surrounding district. Okay, well, we have an innocent, unscripted encounter. I'm going to say unscripted because the raising of Lazarus in John's gospel is something that was clearly planned and carefully planned ahead of time as the great demonstration of Jesus' power immediately before he was arrested and crucified. This just happened. We got a bottleneck coming in and out of a city. We got Jesus and a great multitude of his followers trying to come into the city when this funeral procession is coming out of the city. It is a widowed mother, her only son. She has lost not only her only son, but her only male relative who could take care of her. And throughout the Gospels, we learn from time to time how at risk a woman without a male relative is. And we just know it historically. They were open game for any kind of predatory person to take all of their belongings. And so this is seriousness compounded upon seriousness here with her. And Jesus knows exactly what the situation is, and we have his motivation. This is an impulse action. This is not Jesus thinking, here's an opportunity. This is not what happens here. This is an impulse based upon what? There are 13 times in the Gospels that Jesus' motivation is given, and 12 of those times, that motivation is this word, compassion. Jesus is moved with compassion. The healing ministry that Jesus had, can we even call it a healing ministry? A ministry sounds like something you plan to do. The healing part of it was necessary in the moment to demonstrate that he was who he said he was, but it was not calculated in any way. This is always Jesus responding with compassion to someone who is in distress. That in itself is a lesson to us that we should always, with wisdom, of course, but we should always respond to our impulse for compassion. It is the impulse that drove Jesus. It's the impulse that put Jesus on the cross. And there are times when we see the humanity of Jesus, and there are times when we see the maleness of Jesus, when we where where I not only identify with Jesus as a human being, but as a guy with a Y chromosome, as a male. And I think this is one of those times because any man who sees a woman he cares about cry wants to fix the thing that has made her cry. It is an overwhelming impulse that men have. And I know women get impatient with our need to fix everything, but this is an impulse we have. And this is an impulse Jesus has. He says, don't cry. And he rushes up, he touches. Don't think of a pine box. This guy was wrapped up. He was being carried on like a stretcher, a litter, a bier, B-I-E-R. And that's what Jesus touched. He didn't touch the corpse. However, the Pharisees would still have thought he was unclean. Not the law, but the Pharisees. He comes up and he touches the stretcher to stop it, to stop the procession. And and he says to the young man what he's a similar thing that he's going to be saying to Jairus's daughter. He calls her baby girl. He calls this guy a young man. And he says, "Young man, I say to you, arise." And the young man does rise. He would have been wrapped up like a mummy at this point. They were taking him out to put him in the cave where once his flesh had deteriorated and all that was left was the bones. The bones would have been put in an ossuary, a bone box. That's what that he was wrapped up at the time, and he sits up and he begins to speak, and it says fear gripped them all. Again, we see this in Mark. Mark uses this as a storytelling device to link stories together, but Luke does the same thing. Shows us that the fearful thing, the terrible thing, is not what people are afraid of. They're afraid of the wonderful thing, the marvelous thing, the powerful thing that Jesus does. Because the power of Jesus is more fearful in a glorious way than the thing that we're afraid of, like death. And so fear grips them all. And they don't call him the Messiah. They say a great prophet has risen among us and that God has visited his people. That's closer to the truth, isn't it? Because Jesus is God. And then we have this, and let's not read, just plow through this verse. The report concerning him went out over all, where? Judea. They're not in Judea. They're in Galilee. Between Galilee and Judea is Samaria. You have to go around either by the coast or you have to go through Perea to get from Galilee to Judea. And yet, his fame is such that it reaches and spreads like wildfire throughout Judea as well. And so it has accomplished increasing his fame as a powerful person and a man of God. Okay, I've taken almost 10 minutes of your time. We're going to pick up with verse 18 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.